Welcome back, loyal disciples of tomorrow followers. Hopefully, we get some new people as well. And we're excited for this episode. We're going to be talking about Helaman 7 through 12. So, be some fun stuff. How are you doing, Joe? How was your
I,
week?
I am doing all right. It was busy, really, really busy.
You wanna tell the people the exciting news?
So I'm gonna let you guys guess. I mean, he kind of just already did that, but we unfortunately will not have an episode next week. We
First
one of
time
us,
missing.
one of us, not gonna name any names, is gonna be getting married. So they will not be there.
Oh,
And yeah, so the other person could do it if they wanted to, but they would have to get someone
the
else.
the attractive person's getting married.
Hmm.
Hmm,
Hmm.
nice. Oh, cool.
But
It's
yeah.
we're happy for him, and it'll be a good day on Saturday for Joe.
Oh yeah.
Uh, with that, as we said, so we'll be back in 2 weeks after this episode, but we'll kick it off like normal with some background.
Woo. Background is going to be super short. This is Nephi, which is the son of Helaman, which is the son of Helaman. So, which is the son of Alma, I think.
I
Yes.
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, which is lineage. Woo. So wow, I just went through all the names. Nephi. Yep, yep, yep. Nephi is going out teaching people, and then he comes back to his home, and they are as wicked as can be. And he tries to teach them, and they are like not having it, and he is having a hard time with it. He ends up going and praying in his tower and just kind of lamenting, like, why can't they be as good as like the he says in chapter 7. He's like, man, I wish I could be like back in like the my forefathers time when they sailed over and they were like easy to be taught and they trusted in the Lord. I'm like, I mean, I have the same record, at least even less record than you do, and I know that they had some issues. But so he's having a hard time with it, and he's on a tower out like in his garden, I guess. This guy is has a garden. I wish I had a garden. But some people on the road that are right next to him, they hear this, and he basically tells them a bunch of stuff. He's like, "Hey, you guys need to be better." Tries to teach them, and they're just not having it. They're starting to contend with one another, and he kind of prophesies to them. He's like, "Hey, go check the judgment seat right now, because one of the chief judge has been murdered, just barely." And they send 5 guys over to check it out, and they see that he's killed, and they're just so in shock that they're like, "What the heck?" And they end up getting arrested for the murder because they're just so the people think that, oh, they
I
were
think God
God's.
smote them because
Yep,
they were on the ground.
yep. So they are just blown away by Nephi's ability to testify of that. Yeah, people think, oh, they're the murderers because and God smote them down. So they get put in prison. The next day, the people start asking, "Hey, where are those 5 guys we sent?" And they're like, "We." The rest of the people are like, "We don't know what you're talking about. We know the 5 murderers. We put them in prison." And so they release them. They tell their account. They all go to and they capture Nephi because they think that he is kind of in part with all of it, and he knew something about the murder. He basically goes through this whole thing and prophesies that if they go to the brother of the chief judge and say all these specific things, that they will find out that he's the one that killed him. And anyway, all these like prophecies and stuff like that, God comes to him and he's like, "Hey, you were very good during that. You kept your cool and you testified to me even when your life was pretty much on the line. You can do whatever you say will go. Like you get the stamp of approval. I know whatever you say is gonna be righteous. So whatever you say, if you say the people is gonna be destroyed, it will be destroyed. If you say there's gonna be a famine, there will be a famine. Luckily, and then so Nephi's like, okay. So he goes out, teaches people. He's like, hey, if you do not repent, you guys are going to be stricken with a famine. And sure enough, they get stricken with a famine. Bunch of people die, and the people end up being humbled and turning back to God. And then we see just the Gadianton robbers, which are kind of taken over the government at this point, have all been kind of swept away. They've all been killed. A few years later, after this famine is released, the Gadianton robbers come back and they start going to the woods and hiding in the woods. So we see the good people in the cities, the Lamanites and the Nephites are both good at this point, or majority of them are good. And we see the Gadianton and robbers starting to grow and multiply and just be a huge problem again. So
Yeah.
summed up, that's these chapters.
Nice. Great job. These chapters with the prompts are going to be very question and discussion kind of oriented. Not a whole lot that we're going to be diving into in the scriptures, but they give us really good things to ponder, which we're excited to discuss. The first one is prophets reveal the will of God to the people. So I want to ask you, what's the role of a prophet?
The prophet is, oh, man, I was trying to think of before we started this, where they talk about it's where the people go to rescue the people of Limhi, not Limhi. That's the Nephi, the Lamanites. With Alma the Elder, there's another people. They look at this. I'm already forgetting things, but they teach them about them. But it's basically is someone that's meant to make us aware of things or steer us away from temptations. Or I guess I'm rambling, but it's the prophet, at least what we believe here in the church, is someone that guides the whole receives revelation from God for a whole group of people, the church in the latter day sense. So we have Prophet President Nelson. He is the one guiding everyone. Like we can receive our own personal revelation, but that won't be different from what he receives for the whole church. It'll just be our own personal kind of witnesses and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind for like what is a
Yeah.
prophet.
I'd say I would agree with all that. They're a mouthpiece for God.
Hmm.
They mostly receive revelation. They can speak directly to our Father in heaven and the Savior. And they're basically there to kind of be like a lighthouse is to a ship. They're
Yeah.
there to guide the whole church and help us get home to our heavenly family one day.
Yeah.
So a follow-up question with that. President Nelson is a current prophet. He is the living prophet on the earth.
Mm.
How can we make sure that we're doing what they ask?
So I think it's important to there's something that I read forever ago that like the current day prophets, their words and what they say is m almost more important than what is put in like scriptures, just because it's modern day stuff, like what they say and
It,
what.
it's
But
specific for our
yeah,
times.
like obviously the scriptures are important. I'm not saying they're not, but and they use the scriptures, so it's in part of it's all of it. But they are like when they bring up things like a good example of this is the family proclamation of the world. I think that's a great example of modern day revelation.
Yeah.
They that came out in like the 1980s, and that was before all this like gender stuff and all this like all the crazy stuff that we're not going to get into right now. But like that was 20 years before that all started really going down, which I think is just an example of them saying like, "Hey, this is where our flag is going to be planted, and we're not moving it." And everyone's like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" Like, okay, we're all the same here, but uh, years down the
Finish.
road,
Yeah.
there's going to be a change for that. So that's that's an example I think of when I think of like modern day revelation and like prophets and why they're important for us right now for us. I don't know if that really,
No, that's great.
yeah.
Comes to mind for me is uh, it always talks about throughout the scriptures the importance of hearing and having an open heart to things. I think a key to following the prophet is being humble
Oh yeah. Oh,
to take correction because that's really what it is a lot of times. I think of this last general conference, or I think it was two. I can't remember. Maybe it was this last one. Think celestial. Uh, but it's not always easy to be like, okay, I need to do better with this.
yeah.
I think of an example. I was in oh, one of the YSA wards in my mission, and President Oakes came and spoke and dropped some stuff that people needed to change in that
Mhm.
area. And as people were leaving, I overheard a lot of the YSAs saying that doesn't apply to me. which was really disappointing to me because they had a revelator, a prophet in their midst, and they were thinking, okay, that's too hard, or their hearts were hard.
Yeah,
And so I would say to all of you, when the prophets speak, it does apply to you. The exception is very, very much an exception for a reason.
yeah,
99 times out of 100, when the prophet speaks, it applies to everyone, not just the people that's why I said we need to have an open heart so that we can receive what they have to say.
yeah. I think even if, because I mean, their messages are pretty broad, like maybe it's for a specific problem, like say you aren't doing that problem, you can still find something in the message that applies
Sure.
to you. Like it's, or something, I mean, the revelation
And
happens.
if you're already doing it, then great. Like
Yeah,
if the prophet speaks about tithing, then and you're already doing it, then great.
yes,
But a lot of the times, like you're saying, the prophet speaks to things that we all need to work on, like
yes,
having better thoughts, treating people
yes,
with kindness, loving
yes.
the Savior, doing things that we can all do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no, I 100% agree. Um, yeah, that's something that I Nephi in these chapters he had an issue with is he would teach these people and they're like, nah. He's like, no, like, come on, guys, like we could all do this. And it must have been a hard thing for him because he had just gone around and taught tons of people, and
yeah.
him and his brother Lehi had seen so much success among even the Lamanites and among their own people. They're like, that doesn't apply to me. I don't have to do that. We're we're humble. Like we're perfect. Why we don't need to do that? It's like,
One of my the greatest examples I can think that like proves that it does apply to us is I
mhm,
think like a couple years ago, President Nelson invited everyone to read the Book of Mormon in the year
mhm,
and to look for, I can't remember specifically what it was, but then it came out, the apostles, what they were getting out of his challenge. If
mhm.
the apostles are taking the challenge that the prophet is giving, then us measly peasants definitely need to do it, you know?
Oh, I
So
very very much agree. That is, yeah.
cool. Uh, follow the prophet. Simple enough. Be humble.
Hmm.
The next prompt is my faith in Jesus Christ must be built on more than signs and miracles. So the first question is simply just why don't miracles do more for our testimony? There's tons of examples in the scriptures. Nephi, I mean, Laman and Lemuel first come to mind, seeing an angel and then immediately murmuring, but it's all throughout the scriptures. Why, why when we see things, is that not a bigger testimony builder?
I don't know because like I think for me I'm like if I saw it I'll be like oh my gosh everything is true. Uh, like oh like that'd be such an eye-opening thing, like
For
it'd
sure.
blow my little mind. How could you doubt at that point? Like I
Yeah.
like you see that kind of stuff like I don't know, for I think of like Israel, even like seeing the waters part is like oh my, Egypt saw that happen and they're like hey boss, I think this might be a trap, like maybe we shouldn't do this. But no, they still like people are
Yeah.
just I don't understand. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's the reason I haven't seen anything is because I would be prideful and like no, like but I don't know. I'm glad you referenced Laban and Lemuel. They had multiple experiences where they were humbled by something. An angel appeared. They were shocked by nothing. Like
So
these
why do
are
you think the Lord made it this way? Because clearly faith is increased by the things that we know, like reading scriptures and the Spirit testifying. Why do you think because he could have made it maybe where seeing is believing,
I think this whole life and before here, we are built as I think are built as beings to rely on faith. That's our fuel. That's our fuel source. Knowledge isn't our fuel source. Faith is what our fuel source. We even watch movies and stuff where it's like, oh, the bad guys are winning. It's like, guys, let's have faith, and then they win. Like, it's faith is such a powerful thing. Believing in something you don't see yet is true. And I think knowledge is important, especially for testimonies and everything, but it's just like building on that foundation. You got to build on faith. You got to be like, you know what, I'm gonna be true to this. This is in my mind. I'm gonna wait until this is true. And eventually you will find truth in that. You don't, I think of Alma and 32 with the faith and the seed. They don't just hand you a big tree like, oh, here's your faith. Like that, like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. Like if someone came up to you and is like, hey, here's a huge giant vineyard. I want you to take care of it. It's like, I don't know how to operate this. But if someone gave you a field of ground, it's like, hey, I want you to plant all these seeds and watch them grow and tell me if they're good or not. And like go and grow a vineyard. Then you're gonna be more, I guess, impartial to those seeds and what they bring forth. If that, I don't know if that makes any sense.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like
Care about them more.
yeah, I learned to grow these. Like I grew these from the ground. Like I had to labor for this. I don't know. Maybe.
I
Um,
like that.
there's a.
I
Oh
Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. There's a quote I'm gonna try and find real quick. So you
Uh,
can.
I would I would say I don't fully understand like what you're saying. For some reason, faith is how we learn. I think part of it could be the scriptures all throughout say remember. I think it's a state that we live in with the natural man in our brains. We easily forget. And so when we see things, I don't think it has as much of an impact on us. But when spirit talks to spirit, we're spiritual beings, like you were getting. And so when we're learning little by little, and the spirit is talking to our spirit saying, this is something, forget that because it's there's some sort of connection there as spiritual beings. And
Hmm.
so we have to walk by that faith.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Uh,
To find it.
yes, I found it. It's a quote by Thomas Paine. That which we obtain too easily, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only. What the? Yeah, it is dearness only which gives everything its value. What we struggle for is inevitably what we value. So, like people, I think of Laban and Lemuel and Nephi. That's immediately what I come to. Nephi had to work for his faith. He
True.
prayed for it. He went into the city without a knowledge of where to go. He was shown the place. He got the plates, got him back. He built a ship. Like he was testing it constantly, and it was something he was growing. Laman and Lemuel, they saw those things, but it was just like, I don't know. Because like Nephi cared about it first. That's why witnesses happened, and they were such an impact. Like for us, we care about this. Obviously, we have a podcast, we care about this. We want to be a part of this. We want to grow. We want to learn. And so, if we were to see a witness like this, I think it would have a greater impact than someone out in the middle of nowhere, like, "Hey, you need to do this."
Yeah, once you put in the work
Mm,
and you see things, I think it does build your testimony.
yeah.
Uh, but that can't be the foundation. I
Yes.
think, but I think too, even if you see things, I think it's more spiritual than physical anyway. Like when Joseph Smith said, I saw God the Father and Jesus Christ, I knew it. I knew that they knew it and I couldn't deny it. I
Yeah.
don't think it's necessarily because he saw.
Mm.
It was because of the witness that he received of their glory, of their
Oh yeah.
goodness, and that made it so the imprint was undeniable.
I totally agree with
So
that.
cool. Well, one day we'll maybe see miracles. They're dope, but keep working faith by faith.
Woo.
Uh, the next one, we're gonna talk a little bit. You touched on it in the background. The Lord gives power to people who seek His will and strive to keep His commandments. I've always been fascinated by this chapter. I want to read 7 through 10. It's not too long. I'll read 7, and then if you want to read,
In chapter 10, 7.
yeah, chapter 10, 7 through 10. I'll read 7 if you want to read 8 through 10. Uh,
Okay.
Behold, I give unto you power that whatsoever ye shall seal on earth shall be sealed in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And thus shall ye have power among this people.
And thus, if you shall say unto this temple, it shall be rent in twain, it shall be done. And if you shall say unto this mountain, be thou cast down and become smooth, it shall be done. And behold, if you shall say that God shall smite this people, it shall come to pass.
Perfect. So we see that he gets this uh, trust that he's
Mhm.
built up with the Lord, which is just crazy to me. There's not much like I don't have question for this. We can kind of just be in awe of it to an extent. But like it's really cool to see that he had gained so much trust with the Lord that no matter what he was going to say to the Lord, he knew the Lord knew that was going to be a righteous desire and he would do it. And so if he said to this mountain, make it earth, then he would have. And so we should strive to get to the point where the Lord can trust us as we do his will.
I think was it in that one? Oh, maybe it was. Never mind. Never mind. I had a thought, but yeah, I just wanted to point out that in the beginning of this chapter, this whole a lot of revelation happens from pondering. And at the beginning of this isn't really in line with this, but
We can
I
move
just
on to the next one real quick. That's the
oh,
next one.
pondering. Oh,
Yep. No, that's
never mind.
perfect.
Never mind. I was ahead of the game.
Now this one's just about
Yeah, yeah.
as
Sorry.
we keep commandments. No, you're good. The Lord gives us power uh, as we keep his commandments. And so
I,
build that trust up. And I'll just move it on to you.
I,
Pondering the word of God invites revelation. So get
yeah,
off,
but
man.
that was ADD. I was like, let me go
There
read
you
some
go.
other verses in this chapter and hmm,
Hey,
pondering.
what are the verses? Share with us.
Yay. I think that pondering is very I've realized that like I've gotten more like insight and just thoughts as I've pondered because obviously we see this like he gets a huge revelation from thinking like he's just thinking about all the events that happened. He's like, wow, what in the world? But another time I think of where someone was pondering and got a revelation was first Nephi, the first guy.
Yep.
So only coincidence that's two Nephi's doing this.
Well,
But
there's two,
yeah,
but yes.
yeah. The the original Nephi, he was pondering and he ended up with was shown tons of he was brought to a high mountain and an angel showed him all things. Well, not all things, but a lot of things. And I think that again, you're just saying marveling at things. I just wanted to say that pondering is important and like being able to think about something and like not just like a fleeting like that's nice. Like we're meant to feast upon the scriptures, but feasting is grabbing and internalizing and processing, just like food. We eat it, we process it. Feasting isn't just like making a mess and throwing the food around. Like you're consuming it, you're processing it up here in a way that makes sense for you and connecting things and making things make sense for you. And that's where revelation happens is where you're making connections between different things. And so I don't
Yep.
know.
I love that. I definitely need to work on pondering. I'm not very good at it. But I'm grateful for the times that are designated to ponder. I think of like the sacrament prayers where they're passing and you have a
Mm.
time to reflect and to ponder, or
Oh
after
yeah.
going through the temple, you have time uh, to ponder and to think about uh, what you've just done and just whatever the Lord wants to speak to you. But I need to do better about as I read my scriptures or just throughout the
Same.
day pondering about Jesus Christ and what He wants to speak to me. Because, like you're saying, it does invite revelation, and we learn things based on thinking about them too. So say
Yeah.
you read a chapter in the Book of Mormon, you're like, oh, those are cool. But as you think about those kind of things, then you get more out of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how it exactly works, but it's just like
That
faith. It kind of does. The Lord gives you revelation, which is
well,
cool.
I think it's kind of the reason why I like the war chapters so much is that, if you just read the war chapters as like a like just read and then you're like,
That's why
wow,
I'm so that's why I
there's
don't like them because I
there's
never ponder about it.
there is so much bloodshed and so much just loss and it just sucks. It's very
Yeah,
negative. So I think just thinking with a spiritual cap on, like, hey, what lessons, like, what was the point and for the Book of Mormon, I guess entirely, thinking what was the purpose of Moroni doing this? Like, why would he want me to read this, like a personal thing? And then just thinking about it,
for
like,
sure.
what could this apply to my life right now? Um, I just want to read a real quick thing from in the Come Follow Me. President Henry B. Eyring explain when we ponder, we invite revelation by the Spirit. So just goes along with what we're saying. Revelation and pondering are hand in hand. That's how we receive revelation as we think about it. So
I
just
love that. Uh, I going along with that, like, how does this apply to my life? Question I've been doing recently that's cool is like based on the things I'm going through and the challenges that I'm facing, like, what does the Lord want me to learn right now? What in this chapter will help me face the challenges that I'm going through? Making it as personal as you can based on
yes.
those questions. And then you're real, it's just like when you're on a mission, you're pondering for other people. You think, I'm
Oh yeah.
studying. I know they have these challenges. If you can do that to yourself too, and it just opens the windows of heaven.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I don't do that too often because,
No, it's hard.
yeah,
You
but
get out of the habit, and
I
it's less work to just read and then call it good.
yeah, I
It's more effort.
definitely like connecting things. That's kind of my thing. I've realized
Yeah.
with especially this read through the book one, I love like interweaving and connecting everything together. Lots, oh my gosh, you should see my page on the Tree of Life. There's so many connections to
Cross
that thing.
references.
Oh, it's insane. But
Nice.
that's kind of the thing I've enjoyed doing in this read through of the Book of Mormon is just connecting everything to one another thing. And I've kind of fallen off the horse a little bit. So this is kind of a reminder to do better about that for me is pondering, but ponder how this could relates to the grand scheme of the why did Moroni do this for me? Like, or in general, why did he do this? Like the man only had a certain amount of room. Why did he put this in here? What lesson is he trying to teach us as people in our day? But
Yeah.
so yeah.
Love that. Uh, I was gonna say something now. I just forgot what I was gonna say with it. Oh well.
Hmm.
We'll move on to the last prompt, which is the Lord wants me to remember him, which is a big thing about this life is remembering and especially remembering the Lord. What in the world causes us to forget the things that we know we should do or the Lord?
Well,
What are some examples?
me, it's dumb. I'm kind of a silly goose. I'm just like, oh,
Ah.
but
Ah.
oh my
Uh,
gosh.
I there's a lot of distractions in the world.
Oh, 100%. I
Work is big, school's big,
yes.
TV,
I
Reels on Instagram,
I think it's me
Beyonce's.
me and Katie had a huge talk. Yeah, sure. No, yes, last night about media and how it's a big distract like it destroys like it's
Sure,
and so I agree with that one. Media is a huge distraction, but I think that we also can be distracted with things that are sometimes are good as well. Like we can just
sure.
be distracted with friends. Like friends are a good thing for us. Like we are social creatures, but they can become a distraction for us. I think callings can be a distraction, which sounds a little weird, but some people get really invested in callings, like, and they will sacrifice, not sacrifice, but they will avoid, I guess, other important things for that. So I don't know that.
There's both sides. There's good distractions, bad distractions. You gotta find balance in things for sure. I've been experiencing that as I got a new calling and I'm maybe starting school and work's busy and new people have moved in, made new friends, and I've just been crazy busy. And it's been nice because as far as maybe sins of omission are now bigger for me because I'm not doing certain things I know I need to because of busyness. But as far as sins of commission, it's kind of nice because I just don't have time throughout the day
True.
to get into trouble because I'm just go, go, go. Uh, but so those are some things that would go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just a thought I had about this. The Lord wants me to remember Him. I thought of something that we said previously on one episode, who knows when. But the sacrament prayers is something that tells us to remember Him, and this kind of ties into something that you've told me is like when the scriptures say to remember something once, it's like you should remember it. When it says it twice, it's like you should really remember it, and then when it says it three times, like you should put that on the highest priority of your list.
Don't you dare forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't you dare. And this both the sacrament prayers say it twice, which means that altogether is four times that we must remember him. and that ties in with this. And unfortunately, the Nephites during this time, they are very ups and downs on remembering their savior. So, how, I guess I wanted to ask you, real quick, unless you have a thought, real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, what are things that we can do to remember him?
Still my question.
Oh, is that your question?
Yeah, that's my next question.
Oh, was it?
I like it.
Oh,
It's tough, but I think of things that I do like in my regular logical uh worldly life where I make notes at work so that I set reminders so that I don't forget things that I have to do or uh just like any setting alarms, whatever you have to do, put sticky notes on your mirror, things that we have to do, a to-do list for groceries. We do all these things to remember constantly. It's the same type of thing as we live the gospel. We wear garments to remember Jesus Christ. We take the sacrament to remember him. We can put things on our lock screen to remember him. We can put things on our mirror. We can set reminders to study our scriptures, to ponder. Whatever we can do to help us remember, we put up pictures of Jesus Christ around our house. Thinking of ways to get creative, to have time to ponder about him or to do the things we know we need to is really how it is, how it needs to be, because then it's harder to forget the more we surround ourselves with him.
oh, I love that. I I've actually a confession. When I set alarms and stuff and they go off later in the day, it bugs me that I'm like it's like no, I'm not doing it just because it bugs me. It's which is terrible, but we're all trying to learn. So,
Sure, brothers, how dare I said that?
who did this? But yeah, I I agree with all those. Those are very same stamp. But I know for me, especially at work, just while I'm doing my daily things, just taking a moment to like reflect, just like, life's good. And just send in like maybe a prayer or something to that effect. Like, hey, thanks for a good day so far. Like
Yeah,
this like those can go a long day. Like even like small little prayers throughout the day or just like thoughts in his general direction throughout the day. I mean, we do the sacrament prayers again, going back to those, we say that we're going to remember him four
yep,
times in both of them. So we should do our best to try and remember him.
yeah. Love that. Look at that. Made it through another episode. We're gonna, before we send it off, I'll ask you, what are you gonna do this week based on these chapters?
Um, well, I think just like what I said, I think I'm gonna start pondering more, and set like listen to the reminders that I have set and do better at not just like thinking about him, but doing things that involve that like reading and stuff like that and interconnecting. That's the thing I said earlier, is that I've fallen out of interconnecting things and I want to get back into that because I feel smart doing it. I'm like, yes, I know it's not me. Wait, I'm humble, I swear. But it's the Lord that's the revelation he's given to me. And even though it's like little silly things like, oh, back to First Nephi 8, like it's
Yeah,
they're still mine and they're still important to me. And I should treat them as such, and I should devote time in order for God to talk to me.
love that.
So,
I'm gonna say something very similar. Clearly, the Spirit wants us to do this similar thing. Uh, Filling my life with things that will help me remember Jesus Christ, getting creative with ways to do so, and then pondering about him, his sacrifice, pondering about what I know to be true as I read the scriptures and I do other things. That way I can get more revelation out of it and continue to grow spiritually.
yeah, I love that.
Thanks everyone who made it to this point in the episode. We appreciate it. Appreciate your support. So next week, Helaman 13 through 16, you're on your own. Uh, but we'll be back in 2 weeks and we'll have another episode for you and it'll be a good time. And Joe will be married and happy and having fun in Mexico.
Woo! If you guys have any thoughts or questions or comments in any form of the way, and you want to put them down below, we really do would appreciate it. We love to hear from you guys and would love to get some maybe even feedback on something you'd like us to talk about. Maybe. I don't know. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you in, as Zach said, 2 weeks. So,
Okay, sounds good. See y'all. See you, Joe.
okay, we'll see y'all.